deadheading the roses along the back fence when my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it. Saturday mornings in late October are short on daylight, and I had half the bed still to go, my knees already complaining about the damp ground. But something made me pull off my garden glove, and look, it was a text from my daughter-in-law. 4 words. "Please come, I'm scared." I called her immediately. It rang 7 times and went to voicemail. I called again. Same thing. I was already walking toward the back door, dirt still under my fingernails, when she finally picked up. "Mom." Her voice was so small I barely recognized it. She only called me Mom when she was happy or when she was falling apart. "Nadine, where are you?" A long pause. I could hear her breathing, shallow, uneven. "I'm in the car. I'm parked outside the Walgreens on Clemson Road." I didn't know where else to go. I grabbed my keys off the hook by the garage door. "Stay there. I'm coming." I found her in the far corner of the parking lot, her little blue Honda pulled in facing the wall like she was trying to disappear into it. When I tapped on the passenger window, she startled so badly she knocked her coffee cup into the footwell. I got in before I said another word. She was wearing the same cardigan she'd had on at dinner 2 nights before. Her hair was unwashed, and she had that look people get when they've been crying for so long their face has simply given up and gone blank. Her left wrist had a bandage on it that she was pulling at with her right hand, peeling the edge up and pressing it back down, over and over. "What happened to your wrist?" "I burned it on the oven rack." She said it too quickly. I didn't push. "Not yet." I put my hand over both of hers to stop the picking. "Tell me what's going on, sweetheart." She looked out the windshield for a long moment. A man pushing a cart full of bags walked past without looking at us. A pickup truck idled in the fire lane. Everything out there was completely ordinary, and here we were in the middle of something that was not. "She told me to leave," Nadine finally said. "My mother-in-law. She sat me down at the kitchen table last night while Marcus was at his work dinner, and she told me I needed to understand something." She stopped, swallowed hard. "She said I didn't come from the right kind of people, that my family, my parents, my grandmother, she said people like us don't have the values to hold a marriage together. She said Marcus deserves better than someone from my background." I kept my voice very steady. "What exactly did she mean by your background?" Nadine looked at me then. She had grown up in a small town in rural Tennessee, the granddaughter of sharecroppers, a woman who had worked 2 jobs to put herself through nursing school. She was one of the most capable people I had ever known. She was also the woman who had loved my son faithfully for 11 years, raised 2 children with him, and never once asked for more credit than she gave. "She meant all of it," Nadine said quietly. "Where I grew up, how I grew up, what my grandmother was." She pressed her lips together. She said the children were starting to pick up habits from my side of the family, and she wasn't going to stand by and let that happen. I sat with that for a moment. Outside, a mother was loading a toddler into a car seat, the child protesting, little legs stiff and straight. Normal life. Just beyond the glass. "Does Marcus know she said this to you?" "She told me not to tell him." Nadine's jaw tightened. She said if I made trouble by running to him, it would only prove her point, that women from families like mine don't know how to handle things with dignity. I thought about my son. I thought about his mother, my ex-husband's wife, the woman he had married 4 years after our divorce, who had inserted herself into my son's life as a second mother, and over the past 15 years had been quietly, methodically, working to pull him into her orbit and push everything else to the edges. I had never said a word about it. I had been dignified. I had been patient. I had told myself it wasn't my place. Sitting in that cold parking lot with my daughter-in-law's hands shaking under mine, I thought, that's over. I took Nadine back to my house. I made her eat something. Scrambled eggs and toast, nothing fancy, but she ate it, which told me she hadn't eaten properly in at least a day. I put her in the guest room with the good quilt and told her to sleep, that we would figure out the next part when she was rested. Then I called my sister. Gwendolyn is 4 years younger than me and has been an attorney for 31 years. She specializes in family law and estate planning, and she has seen, as she says, every version of every story there is. She is also the most clear-eyed person I know. When I told her what Nadine had told me, she was quiet for long enough that I had to check the phone to see if the call had dropped. "How long has this woman had access to Marcus's finances?" she asked. It was not the question I expected. What? His finances? His accounts? Does she have any kind of access or influence over his financial decisions? I thought about it. Marcus had mentioned a year or so ago that his stepmother had introduced him to her financial advisor. He'd said something about consolidating his retirement accounts. I hadn't thought much of it at the time. "I'm not sure," I said. "Maybe. And the house Nadine and Marcus live in, who holds the deed?" I didn't know. I realized I had never asked because it had never occurred to me to ask. "Find out," Gwendolyn said. "And Marion, don't call Marcus yet. Don't tell him anything until you know more. If there is something deliberate happening here, you warning him before you understand the full picture could cause him to protect her rather than himself." I hung up with a feeling I recognized from decades ago, from the months after my first husband left, and I had to learn, very fast, that the ground could shift without warning. Nadine slept for almost 4 hours. When she came downstairs, I had coffee ready, and I sat across from her at the kitchen table, and I asked her to tell me everything she could remember about the past 2 years. Not just last night. Everything. It came out slowly at first, then in a rush. The financial advisor had suggested about 18 months ago that Marcus moved the children's college savings into a new vehicle, a trust structure that would protect the assets better and allow for more flexibility. Marcus had agreed. The trust had been set up with himself and his stepmother, both listed as trustees. Nadine had signed documents she hadn't fully read because Marcus told her it was just a formality. 6 months ago, Marcus had started a side business, consulting work, he said, in addition to his regular job. His stepmother's husband was a partner in the firm he was consulting for. The income from that consulting work went into a separate account that Marcus said he was keeping separate for tax purposes. Nadine had seen one statement by accident. The amounts were not small. 3 months ago, Marcus had mentioned, almost in passing, that his stepmother had suggested they might want to consider updating their estate documents. He had an appointment scheduled with her attorney, not Gwendolyn, not any attorney Nadine or I knew, but the same one who had set up the trust the following month. Last night, after his stepmother had had a conversation with Nadine, she had texted Marcus. Nadine had seen the notification on his phone when it lit up on the counter. She hadn't read the message, but she had seen the name. And this morning, Marcus had left early for what he said was a breakfast meeting. He hadn't kissed her goodbye. I listened to all of it without interrupting. When Nadine finished, she wrapped both hands around her coffee mug and looked at me like she was waiting for me to tell her she was overreacting. "You're not overreacting," I said. She let out a breath she had been holding, I think, for months. I called Gwendolyn back. I told her everything Nadine had told me. There was another long silence, and then my sister said, "Marion, I need you to do something today right now before the end of business hours." She told me what to do. I drove to the county courthouse. Gwendolyn had texted me the exact search terms. I sat at one of the public terminals in the records office, a woman my age surrounded by people half my age, and I searched the property records for my son's address. The deed to the house Marcus and Nadine had been living in for 9 years was not in Marcus's name alone. It was held in an LLC. The LLC had been registered 2 years ago. The registered agent was not Marcus. It was his stepmother. I sat very still in that hard plastic chair, and I looked at that document for a long time. A clerk walked past and asked if I needed help printing anything. I said no thank you, I was fine, and I took a photo of the screen with my phone. My hands were steady. I want to be clear about that. I have learned, at 63 years old, that the moments when you most need to be steady are the moments that feel most like falling, and the only thing that keeps you upright is deciding, before the feeling hits, that you will not fall down. I drove back to my house. I called Gwendolyn. I sent her the photo. "All right," she said, and her voice had that particular flatness it gets when she has shifted from sister to attorney. "Here's what we're going to do." We did not confront Marcus that night. Gwendolyn said it was important that he not feel ambushed or cornered, that we had to bring him information and give him the chance to process it rather than defending himself out of instinct. She had seen too many cases where a person, presented with evidence that someone they trusted had betrayed them, initially defended the betrayer, simply because accepting the truth was too painful to do quickly. Nadine went home that evening. She was steady by then. Quiet, but steady. I walked her to her car, and she hugged me for a long time. "I didn't know if I should tell you," she said. "I didn't want to cause trouble." "You are not the one causing trouble," I said. "You have never been the one causing trouble. Don't let anyone make you carry that." She pulled back and looked at me. "She really believes it, you know. What she said about my family, she really believes it." "I know," I said. "That's her problem to live with, not yours." The meeting with Marcus happened on a Tuesday evening. Gwendolyn came. We sat in my living room, Marcus on the sofa, Nadine beside him, Gwendolyn in the armchair with her legal pad, me in the chair by the window. Marcus had come thinking it was a family dinner. He walked in and saw Gwendolyn's legal pad, and his face changed. To his credit, he didn't leave. Gwendolyn laid it out methodically. The LLC, the deed, the trust structure with his stepmother as co-trustee, the consulting income going into an account Nadine had no visibility into, the upcoming appointment with his stepmother's attorney to update their estate documents, an appointment that, had it proceeded, would almost certainly have further entrenched his stepmother's legal and financial position within their marriage. Marcus was quiet for a long time after Gwendolyn finished. Then he said, "She told me the LLC was for liability protection." "I'm sure she did," Gwendolyn said. "She said putting it in the LLC would protect the house if I ever got sued by a client." "Marcus." Gwendolyn's voice was gentle. "She is the registered agent of that LLC. That means she has legal authority over that entity. The house is an asset of that entity. If this were ever contested, she would have standing to claim an interest in that property." Marcus looked at Nadine. Nadine looked back at him without accusation, just quiet, tired truth. "She told me," Nadine said carefully, "that I didn't come from the right kind of people, that our children were picking up habits from my side of the family." She paused. "She told me not to tell you." Something moved across Marcus's face. I had not seen that look since he was a boy, and had finally understood that his father was not coming back. It was the look of a person revising something they thought they knew. He put his face in his hands. "I believed her," he said from behind his hands. "She told me you—" He stopped, looked up at Nadine. "She told me you resented her, that you'd been trying to turn my mother against her." He glanced at me. "Against me." "Have I ever said a word against her?" I asked. He looked at me for a long moment. "No," he said. "You never did." Gwendolyn spent the next 6 weeks working. I won't go into every detail of what that involved, the consultations, the documents, the careful process of unwinding what had been built up over 2 years of slow, patient maneuvering. I will say that it was legal, all of it, and that Gwendolyn was thorough in a way that left very little room for argument. The deed to the house was transferred. The LLC was dissolved. Marcus removed his stepmother as co-trustee of the Children's College Fund and replaced her with Gwendolyn. he cancelled the appointment with his stepmother's attorney and retained his own. He called his stepmother and told her, clearly and without anger, what he had discovered and what he had decided. I was not there for that conversation. Marcus told me later that she had cried and said she had only ever been trying to protect him. He told her he understood that she believed that. He also told her that her understanding of protection was not his, and that going forward, his family's financial and legal affairs would remain within his family. She called me once after. I let it go to voicemail. The message was 40 seconds long, and I have not listened to it. I don't intend to. It is February now. The rose bed is cut back and mulched for the winter, and the garden looks bare and a little raw, the way it always does between seasons. Nadine comes for coffee on Sunday mornings sometimes, just the two of us, before Marcus and the children arrive for lunch. Last Sunday she brought a coffee cake she had made from her grandmother's recipe. Simple, a little dense, sweet with molasses and winter spice. My grandmother used to make this for church suppers, she said, cutting a slice for each of us. Her mother taught her, 4 generations back, to someone who made it with whatever she could get. I took a bite. It was very good. The kind of good that doesn't come from a recipe card, but from time and repetition and love passed hand to hand. 4 generations is something to be proud of, I said. Nadine smiled. Not the polite smile she used to wear at family gatherings when she was trying not to take up too much space. A real one, the kind that reaches the eyes. I know that, she said. I always knew it. I just needed to remember it for a while. My grandchildren came in from the yard loud and pink-cheeked from the cold, arguing about something that had happened by the oak tree, and the kitchen filled up with noise and the smell of coffee and that cake. And I thought, this is the thing that cannot be taken. Not the house, not the money, not any of it. This, what gets passed down between people who love each other, without condition, without fine print, without a registered agent. My son came through the back door last, stomping mud off his boots on the mat like he has done since he was 12 years old. He looked at Nadine and she looked at him, and something passed between them that I recognized, and that is not mine to describe. He caught me watching. "Good cake?" he asked. "The best," I said, and it was. I've been thinking these past few months about how long things can be building before you see them clearly. Gwendolyn asked me once, toward the end of all of it, whether I felt angry. I had to think about that honestly, and the answer was not the way I expected to. What I felt more than anger was something quieter and harder to name. A kind of grief, maybe, for all the years I had stood back and called it restraint. All the Sunday dinners I had smiled through. All the times I had told myself that the wisest thing was to say nothing, hold my tongue, let it pass. Here is what I know now that I didn't know then. Silence is not always wisdom. Sometimes it just gives the wrong thing more room to grow. I don't say that to punish myself. I'm 63 years old, and I've earned the right to be honest about my own mistakes without turning them into a verdict on my whole character. But I think it matters to say it plainly, because what happened to Nadine didn't begin the night she was told her people didn't belong. It began years earlier, in 100 small moments, where someone's cruelty was allowed to go unnamed. The cruelty didn't start large. It never does. It starts as a comment here, a suggestion there, a gentle repositioning of who gets to matter in a family and who doesn't. What saved Nadine, and I mean that word deliberately saved, was not luck. It was that she made one decision, on one cold Saturday morning, to send 4 words to someone she trusted. And I showed up. That's the whole of it. She reached, and someone was there to reach back. I think about my son, too. Marcus is a good man. He was not a villain in this story, and I want to be clear about that. He was a person who trusted someone he had been trained from boyhood to trust, and that trust was used against him. The intelligence to recognize that, Once the evidence was in front of him and the courage to act on it rather than defend the easier version of events, that took something real. I watched him do it, and I was proud of him in a way that is hard to put into words. Pride in a child's character, when you see it tested and it holds, is a different kind of thing than the ordinary pride of watching them succeed. The woman who sat across from Nadine at that kitchen table and told her she didn't come from the right kind of people. I think she genuinely believed she was protecting something. That is almost the saddest part of it. The harm that comes from small, hard certainties about who deserves what is not always the harm of malice. Sometimes it is just the harm of a person who decided long ago what the world looks like and stopped being willing to look again. I don't hate her. I also don't need to listen to her voicemail. What I keep coming back to is Nadine's grandmother's coffee cake and what Nadine said about it. 4 generations passed hand to hand. That is what endures, not the documents or the LLCs or the registered agents. The things that actually last are the things people choose to carry forward, because they are worth carrying. And you do not get to decide what is worth carrying in someone else's life. That is theirs. My garden looks rough in February. Bare canes, cold ground, nothing much to see. But I know what's under there, and I know what it will do come April. Some things just need the right season to show what they're made of. Nadine knows that now, too.